So here is another reason to always check the wheels and tires and stuff on old cars you bring home. This is the worst of the wheels. So what do you guys see that's wrong? Yeah, there's only 2 lug nuts on this entire wheel. So I've sprayed them down with WD-40. It's probably been 10 years since these wheels have been off. This one has 3, all the rest have 3. I think the minimum on wheels should be at least 4, but at the same time, gotta check that stuff. Gotta check it. So I finally got the wheels off. The hardest one was this front passenger side one. It was just on there. So I ended up having to use this fence pole as a lever arm with this screwdriver in order to get that out. It took way too long. But looking at the brake rotors, they don't look half bad. I mean, they're definitely going to need cleaned up, but there's no big gouges in them. This one's obviously wet because I actually feel like they have very few miles on them. Like I said before, these rallies and the trim rings and everything are end up going on this car, and these aluminum slots are going to end up going on the 77. Something interesting between rally wheels and aluminum slots is there is a difference in lug nuts. So if you look, let's look at the aluminum one first. If you look at this one, you see they're not really beveled and they go into the wheel, so they ride flush like that. The lug nuts for the rally wheels are not like that. If you look at these lug nuts, they're actually beveled inside, and the holes in the wheels are different. For that reason, the lug nuts for the rallies are different than the lug nuts for the aluminum slots. So if you ever go to change them, you'll have to get new lug nuts, just so you know. As you just saw in the last video, I can't get the car to actually run for longer than the amount of gas that I pour down in the carburetor. So I figure let's just go ahead and rebuild it. It doesn't take too long. It's not that hard of a job. So I'm going to go ahead and rip this off the car really quick. I made sure to take pictures of all 4 sides of it so I know where everything goes once I go to put it back. But I'm pretty sure the insides are probably just full of varnish. I know the accelerator pump does not work at all, so it's going to need at least cleaned up inside and then new gaskets put on it. Got the carburetor off, and let me see if you can see in there. Of course you can't. Got the carburetor off, and there's no rust or no evidence of water getting down inside the intake, which I was pretty sure there wasn't, but that's just one thing you need to check once you get it off. So let's go take it apart on the bench. Here we are on the bench. Now I know I've done carburetor videos before, so I'm not really going to go deep into this, but what I'm going to tell you guys is just take a million pictures of the carburetor, so that way when you put it back together you know exactly how it's supposed to go. Every time I take a set of bolts out, I take a picture and lay them out on the bench in the order, so that way I get every bolt in the same spot that it was in. This carburetor has definitely never been rebuilt, which is great. No factory or any kind of crap they've done anything to it, but it's definitely numbers matching just like everything else in that car. So I'm going to start and take it apart, and when you guys come back it'll all be blown apart. Let's lift off the top of the carburetor for the first time and see what's inside. Pretty typical. It really smells disgusting, but when you look at this, these are spring loaded and they're stuck. Also, the accelerator pump had a bad O-ring on it. It's over there, and there's a piece missing off the top, which is right there. So we will get all this cleaned out and unstuck. I don't know if anybody's ever been in this carburetor before. It's kind of hard to tell. I'm not that trained at knowing whether they have or not. I'm going to keep the gasket so I can compare it to a new one. But either way, it's pretty gross and it needs, at least in the minimum, cleaned out. In addition to having, I believe it's called the power valve that goes in here. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, in addition to having that stuck, this needle and seat is stuck. I'm obviously going to replace it, but yeah, it's going to take some massaging to get out. I might just take the whole assembly out at one time. That's stuck. So That's probably the reason why it was not idling correctly. The jet's in the bottom of the carburetor. I mean, it's a little dirty, but it's not too bad. So carb cleaner will go a long way when it comes to this. So I'll get that out and we'll see what it looks like underneath. One thing that I'm very glad I decided to do was change the spark plugs. So I don't know how well you guys can see these, but none of them are oil fouled, but they're dirty as heck, and they're probably gas fouled too. Now what I don't know is if these are original plugs to the car. I really hope not, but AC Delco R45TS. Maybe somebody can look that up and see if those are original plugs. Let me know. I don't think so, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were. So here's the end result. What I did was I took all the plugs back out and spun the engine over with no plugs in it, and a bunch of gas came out of the front two cylinders. That's the remnants of the big puddle that it made. So obviously the engine was flooded from me being too excited to get the motor to run. So I'm going to let it air out overnight and then come back again tomorrow, and hopefully it will fire up. I was also wondering, in addition to original spark plugs, if there's any way to know if the cap and rotor are original to 1977. They all say made in USA, which I don't think you can get those anymore. But until next time, hope everybody watching this has a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you guys in 2017.